You have learned how to select and apply style to HTML element using the element name. Just like the example that we have here, we're using the element name body to select and apply style to the body of the HTML web page. In this lecture, you're going to learn 3 other methods for selecting and applying style to HTML elements. The first one that you'll be learning is the universal selector. Let's go over to custom.css. You can use the universal selector to select and apply style rule to all elements at the same time. To use the universal selector, instead of specifying the name of the element, we write down an asterisk character, open and close curly braces, and then we now specify the style that we want to affect all the common elements in the web page. For example, if we want to change the color for all elements at the same time, then we can simply just specify the color attribute here and then give a particular color. Let's say this time we want to use blue. Let's refresh on the browser. You can see that the link color has changed to blue. This page is not being affected because we've not linked the CSS document to this page. Okay, I'm just going to quickly grab the link here and then get rid of this. And then in the contact, I'll also add the link here. So this is how easy it is to apply the same CSS rule to different pages at the same time. Just simply include the link to the CSS document using the link element. You can see that the color has now turned to blue for all the elements on the page. And also if you come to the contact page, you can see that all the text are now being highlighted in blue color. You can see that the H1 and H2 is different. This is because we defined a different style rule for them here. Next, we are going to talk about the class selector. The class selector will allow you to style HTML elements based on the class attribute of that HTML element. We define the name of the class and then specify the group of style that we want to be available to that class. And for any element that we want to apply those style to, we then call the style attribute and specify the name to be equal to the class name that we've defined. So let me show you some examples here. To create a class, you start by a period and then the class name. So I want to create a class that will align contents to the right. So let's say test align, or rather let me align this to the center. Just name the center. And I also want to set the font size. Font size should be 10. Now that we have defined this class named center, any element that we specify the class attributes to be equal to center will automatically inherit the style that we've defined here. So let's see some examples. So let's see the style here in this index page. Basically, we are aligning the content to the center. I'm just going to get rid of this. Let's view it in the browser first. Then you can see that the contents are aligned to the right now. And now I'm going to say class be equal to center. You can see that the content has been aligned to the center, and you can see that the size of the text has now been reduced. Okay, this is now getting too small. Let me add some more. Say make this 12. All right, so again, we can come to this page. You can see that the H1 is being aligned to the center, and we are setting the font size to be equal to 40. Again, I can get rid of this and then just say class center. And then afterward, I need to move this one this way. So refresh, you see that this is still at the center. So basically, I'm just illustrating that the class selector can be applied to more than one HTML element as long as the style that we want to apply is applicable to both elements. We can also take this one step further. If we want this class to only affect one specific HTML element, then we can prefix the element's name before the period and the class name. Here, I want this to only affect all H1 element. So I include the tag name here, then the period, and then the class name. So let's do a refresh. Every H1 element that has this class center will now be aligned to the center, and the font size will be 12. Alright, this is not changing because we still have the inline style in place there. Going to remove that now. Move the inline style from here, and I'm going to remove it from here. And then in contacts, okay, let's refresh the browser again. You can see that the font size for the H1 element has been reduced. Come back to the book page. Right now, nothing is happening here because we did not append the style in the book page. So come over here and say books, H1 class, center, save. Then I'll refresh the page. You can see that the style has been applied to this one. The same thing happens for this. As long as we are applying the style to that H1 element, then it's going to take that style rule that we have defined there. All right, I'm going to increase the size to 40. Okay, let's quickly fix some things here. First, we want to remove this, and then we can create another one, p.center. So any paragraph that we assign this class center to will be aligned to the center. The content will be aligned to the center. And then I want to also change the text color. First, I want to change the background color for the main div. And then I want to also change the color. Another thing that you also need to know when it comes to class selector is that you can actually assign more than one class to one element. To illustrate this, let us quickly create another class and call this normal test. And then I'm going to set the font weight to normal. Next, let us now assign this style to all H1 elements. If you see here that the H1 element usually will be in bold form. Okay, so we apply that style to all H1 now. See, so to apply a second style, you put a space after the first style name, and then you can apply the next one. So normal test, go to books, the space, and say normal test. You can see that the text is no longer in the bold format. And this is still bold because we did not apply the normal text class to this one. So for the H2, we can also apply that style to it. Come to the H2 here and say class normal test. So we have H2 also here. Then we say class normal test. Let's see if there's any other H2. We have one here, class normal test. The last one that we're going to talk about is the Id selector. The Id selector basically will use the Id attribute of an HTML element to specify a style rule for that particular element. Usually we use the ID to style one particular element. It is not recommended to use an ID to style more than one element. If we want to style more than one element, we should use the class selector. So let's use our image to illustrate this one. To use the ID selector, we start with the sharp sign and then we specify the name. So let's call this home image. We want the width to be 520. Then we want the height to be 600. Just double check. Okay, width is 600 and height is 500. Change this to 600 and then change this to 500. And now we can remove the style that we have here. All right, the image is growing out because we have not actually applied the style to this image. So we'll go back to the index page and then right here we now give this an ID and say the name of this ID should be equal to home image. You see that the style is applied to the image right now.